Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery podcast are proud to bring you Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast. Join your hosts, Mike the Podfather and Jersey Ed, as they address the real issues in health and wellness for first responders. From physical and mental health to relationships and work-life balance, we leave no stone unturned. Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, as well as iHeartRadio. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery answering the call.
Hey everybody, welcome to Answering the Call, the First Responders podcast, and it's sponsored by Genesis House. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles.
Hello everybody, I'm Jersey Ed.
Jersey Ed. How are you, Ed?
Good, how are you, Mike?
Good. We have a guest today, Ed.
We do, Chris Cuddihy.
Hello,
from
gentlemen.
Long Island, New York.
That's right.
And he's from across the pond as well.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
And we're going to get into his story and his amazing feats and some of the good stuff he does.
Do you know any of the Royals by any chance?
I met them all. I had tea with them. We had a good time. You know, it was a good deal.
Good. Well, thank you for welcome to Answering the Call, First Responders podcast. First of all, we want to thank Genesis House for supporting this show, along with the first responders community. Answering the Call, the First Responders podcast is powered by likes, follows, subscribes, and shares. Do us a favor and leave us a 5-star review. Look above my head, you'll see the 5 stars. So, back to you in the newsroom, Mike. Short and sweet,
I'm going to
man.
give you 5 stars in a minute.
How you doing, Sweets?
I'm doing great.
Oh,
Thanks
yeah,
for
we got
asking.
Sweets is here, too.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Thanks for including me. I appreciate that.
You're looking good again today.
I'm very professional.
Wow, man.
You
Handsome
like this
man.
suit?
I
You guys
love
like
it,
this
man.
suit? Yeah.
You
The
make
tie
us-
looks good.
What's that, a 3-piece suit?
It is
Yeah.
the pocket squares
Bringing
custom.
it back in.
Hey,
The
Matches my eyes.
Absolutely.
Nice
it
pocket
does.
watch
It
hanging out the
does.
side there, too.
It does.
Looking-
Absolutely.
Looking dapper.
I
You
know.
are a slave to fashion.
Too bad we can't get a camera on him so they can see how handsome
well,
he is over
It's,
there.
it's
in
the
his
mystery
suit.
of.
That's right. That's right. So,
Someday, maybe piece by piece.
Yes.
We'll start at the knees.
That's
We'll
right.
do like a blurred
Work our
face
way
with,
up.
my voice will be all like this.
Yeah, mystery guest.
4'7",
Yeah,
4 feet wide.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Good-looking
right.
man.
He's real,
Single,
he's real,
ladies and
he's real
gentlemen.
thick.
Yeah.
He's just a real thick guy.
Yeah,
Mr. 5x5, we call him.
But he's got a good personality.
That's right.
and most of his teeth.
Yeah. Let's see. Smile. Oh, most of them are there. Yes, absolutely.
I remember
So-
those blind dates when I was single, yeah. But she has a good personality. Well, what does she look like? Wow, she's funny.
Oh my God! So what do we got on Answering the Call today, Mike?
Well, we have a few things. We have a hell of a guest, I'll tell
We
you
do.
that. I was just talking to Chris off air here, and man, I'll tell you, we might be able to replace you.
Would be
absolutely.
hard.
Jersey.
Jeez, thanks. He'd be New York, or Britain.
Yeah.
Where are you
The
from?
Britain bomber,
England.
that's
The
what we're
Britain
gonna call
bomber.
him.
There you go. That's it.
So, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
yeah.
Oh,
Or a lot about yourself.
yeah, where do I start? You know, there's a whole load of stuff.
How'd you get here?
I flew, and boy, are my arms tired. No, so-
It's gonna be one of those
Would you?
shows, huh? I gotta get my jokes out now.
Why did you leave the
I actually left the States.
okay.
Both my parents passed by the time I was 7. My mom died in a car accident in Southampton on Deerfield Road when I was 7.
My goodness.
Yeah, Dad died of a separate car accident on
Oh my God!
on Dune Road on the 4th of July weekend when I was 4.
What the heck?
And we were that's part of the disease, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were grabbed up by a well-meaning uncle, and 5 of us were flown off to England and separated. You know, got an elder brother and sister sent off to Scotland. Myself and my brother and sister went off to a boarding school called Summerhill in Suffolk in England, and stayed there until 1980, 81. Came back. And here I am.
There you are.
So traveled around the States a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I met Chris in St. Louis, so I'm going to tell a quick story how I met him. So he's a great guy. Him and I have been speaking ever since September. He's a real extremist as far as stuff goes, and we'll get into that. And that's why we have you on the answering the call. Just to the health and wellness piece of everything. Plus, you have a wonderful story as far as recovery goes too. That always helps. But I got invited to a dinner out in St. Louis at an EPA conference, and So we're all standing together, and all of a sudden I hear this fucking guy from England going off. I was like, oh my God, I'm like, it's going to be a long dinner. I'm like, Jesus Christ. So I'm like, God, please don't put me in a car with him. We took an Uber. Sure enough, he's in a goddamn car with me, right? All right. So he's yapping in the car. I'm like, oh my God. So I got away from him I just was in a bad mood that day. And I got away from him in the restaurant, and we waited, about 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, I have that effect on a lot of people, by the way. My wife is so glad I'm in Boston.
I like you, Chris.
So I ended up, I love Chris too. So I ended up not standing by him at the restaurant, and we file in this big room with round table. It was a wonderful dinner in St. Louis, and I sit down, and there's one seat left next to me and one fucking person left sit next to me, and it's this guy. I was like, here we go. It ended up being one of the best nights I ever had out to dinner. Chris is a fascinating person. The reason why I asked him to come on here was he explained to me a lot about what he does for veterans. He'll explain all that, but he also does a lot of physical stuff. He's a runner, a rower, whatever he can get his hands on, he does. And I thought it would just be a good fit for the wellness piece of this show. So
good job.
He's just wonderful. So veterans, what do you do with the veterans? You impressed me what you were doing. A couple things you were going to do.
If we jump back all the way back to when I first came back to the States, I remember that we went to my first 4th of July parade in Southampton Village, and the fire trucks and everything else, and all of a sudden I hear these roaring motorcycles, and I look up, and there's a bunch of ragtag guys, and I say to my wife, I go, who is that? She goes, oh, those are Vietnam vets. And all I remember is standing up and applauding for about 3 minutes, and just blown away by the fact that you'd had all the uniform crews, you'd had everybody else out there, it was all this organized stuff, and then there were these Vietnam vets. And it stayed with me for a really long time, and it occurred to me that, I accused myself of being a guilty survivor. At that age, I managed to dodge literally every bullet. I was in England during the draft. I managed to avoid that. I am grateful that I avoided it, but I watched all my family members go. And essentially the mistreatment and the misguided efforts that are put into our veterans, and the pain and suffering that they go through, and the way we've just shoved every single one of them under the bed. And it doesn't matter what war, it doesn't matter. My uncle, Second World War, same thing, ignored, and just pushed to the side.
Yeah,
so,
and then they come back here, and the PTSD, nobody treats them. They get minimal treatment, and I mean, it is horrible what happens to our vets.
It's horrendous. So, years later, after doing various veterans events, and, I won't get into the physical aspect, but my son, who works for Suffolk County, also works at the PD, and one of the officers came up to him, knew that we were doing some stuff with a great group called Suffolk County Homefront. And Suffolk County Homefront are a series of 911 operators and veterans who do things like send boxes of socks over to Afghanistan and Iraq. They were buying, you'd mentioned vets on another bulletproof vests. We were supplying them with bulletproof vests and everything else. And so we said, what can we do? What can we do to raise money for them? So we joined up with another group called Suffolk County United Veterans, the Vets Place, and I'd mentioned it to you, Podfather, about that you'd had an interaction with them. That's a very simple 11-room location in Yaphank, New York, that was started by a great guy called John Lynch, an Irish Vietnam vet, an immigrant, who said he was going to take the veterans from homelessness to home ownership. And that really struck me. He said, here are the levels that we'll take. And we got introduced to the Vets Place, and so we started doing fundraisers for them. We did a series of Round Island rows. 2 of them were failed events. They were failed efforts. It's much harder to row around Long Island than you think, guys.
So you actually rode around Long Island?
Yeah, nonstop. The first one, though, we crashed and burned in Mauritius.
So how often did you have to put gas in the tank?
Yeah, right. Well, that was it.
Oh, you mean rowing?
Yeah,
rowing.
Right.
Oh, okay.
When you say to someone, "Oh, yeah, well, I rowed," well, prior to that, I had, I'll get into that bit, but we had rowed across the Atlantic. I'd gone over and met a guy in Shelter Island and got roped into, other than fundraising. He said, look, we need another rower. And he said, hey, you want to row? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Well, it's just the Atlantic from Africa to Barbados, I'll do it. So I got wrapped into that bullshit, and it's 34 days of 3 other lunatics on a boat.
It's crazy. You can watch it on YouTube too.
If you can't see Chris, he has 4 arms like Popeye,
and that's not from rowing, folks.
There's way too many 16-ounce curls.
Oh God!
But, that changed my life without a doubt. And then being able to realize that, hey, I can do stupid things and raise some money at the same time. So we started doing the Round Island Rows, and everything that my family and I have done has been self-funded. Because when you get into that corporate mindset, it's just really difficult. So we put money together. We raised, I think, maybe $4,000 the first row round. We failed. I built this bizarre catamaran the following time. We put 6 guys on it. The boat sank a couple of times. It was hysterical. We made it to Mauritius again, and then.
Good Lord, and our vets are depending on you.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
but hey, we raised money. I mean, that was news actually said maybe they're onto something. Keep failing and you'll keep raising the money.
That's right.
But rowing around Long Island is a much tougher process than you think.
How many miles is that?
325 odd miles, and
you failed. Come on.
Yeah. Well,
Jesus Christ.
Well, it's nonstop and unsupported, by the way. So we pumped our own water. We brought all the food with us. So the third row, I actually went and got a 22-foot O'Day sailboat that a couple of guys had converted into a rowboat. And my son, Ryan, and a good friend of his, Aaron Williamson, who did the Appalachian Trail with him to raise money for the Wounded Warriors. They did that in 3.5 months.
Wow.
They rowed with me. My son said, I'm never getting on a fucking boat with you again, ever.
I've been there.
Yeah, we did that 7 days. It took us 7 days to row.
Oh, my God.
We raised a fair amount of money. Then we moved to a thing called the Riverfront 24, which was a 24-hour race that we did for the Suffolk County United Veterans. We did it downtown Riverhead, where we would just run a half-mile loop for 24 hours.
Oh, whoa.
Started out with me on my own. Got hypothermic because I just wasn't paying attention. I managed to get 89 miles that year.
Wow.
Our top mileage getter in the 5th year was 106 miles.
Now, is this all nonstop running?
All nonstop running. Well, you can take a break,
yeah,
if you want to get the distance in. So the idea is to get that century and to get that 100. We had 500 milers in that last.
God.
And let me tell you, doing it in a circle, essentially a half-mile lap, your hip really goes out after a while.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Oh, my God.
So, we stopped that because we weren't getting the cooperation we wanted to out of the town of Riverhead. The supervisor there was relatively uncooperative. Town board was great, but we talk about government. You get tied up in that.
Yeah.
But what we did for Suffolk County Homefront, I think, was really good. I then, a couple of years later, ran across the island, the full length of Suffolk County, from Amityville to Orient Point. That took me a little longer. I did that in 29 hours. But again, we raised, I think, around $8,000, and it's zero cost to those groups.
Yeah.
So
this is all the money going to these groups, and that's
absolutely,
it.
100%. Everything that we've done, when we did the 7 ultra marathons, we were the first ever to do 7 ultras. No one's ever done the ultras since on 7 continents in 7 days. We built an orphanage in Africa.
Wow.
Now I spent 5 years paying that debt off.
Oh my God.
Wow.
But we built the orphanage.
I belong to a group called Veterans Assistant Veterans. John McDonald, very knowledgeable, obviously a veteran. He put this together with a bunch of other people, and we've raised money over the years. Some of the successes were buying a van for a handicapped, handicapped accessible van for a veteran, getting veterans refrigerators, apartments, air conditioners. I was in the Army from 72 to 75, and back then, if you wore your uniform, you could actually go to Newark Airport, get on a plane and fly to Boston for nothing. It was like $89 the flight. But because it was such a tumultuous time where people hated veterans, I remember the first time I flew home in uniform, I got the dirtiest looks, disgusting snickers and everything else. And I knew it was because I had a uniform on, But that's the perception of what society was thinking about. It was a very turbulent time. From 72 to 75. It was worse from 67 on because of all the riots in Chicago and all the peace marches and everything. But veterans really, especially Vietnam era veterans and Vietnam veterans, they get treated horribly coming home.
Yep.
You know. So VAV, real quick, VAV is a group. We had a welcome home 50th year anniversary for Vietnam veterans. We gave them all a pin, a commemorative pin. We had it at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium. We had over 300 veterans that we pinned, and we raised $30,000. And it was a great,
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it was. And John McDonald, Kevin Richardson, there was a bunch of us. A lot of hard work was put into it. We had these. It was called the Battle of the Bands. We had bands from Boston, the band Boston, a few other well-known bands. Jay Giles' band. Actually, Jay Giles came and sang. It was 6 weeks before he passed away. We had this event. So.
And how far did you run for that one, Mike?
About 14, 15 steps, I believe. I was a little heavy back then. You know?
God. But so we're going to take a quick break here.
Yep, answering the call. The First Responders Podcast, sponsored by Genesis House. We'll be right back.
All right.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. The First Responder Recovery Program at Genesis House is led by a doctorate-level therapist with direct professional experience as a first responder himself. Treatment modalities focus on psychiatric care, relapse prevention, stress management, and trauma-informed care for PTSD. Learn why their individualized approach makes a difference for first responders. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Answering the call. First Responders Podcast, sponsored by Genesis House. And we're here with the Podfather.
That's right. Hello, everybody. I'm Jersey Ed. And Podfather, I forgot to do the Jersey Ed podcast pick of the week.
Yeah, don't forget that.
Yeah, let me give that out real quick.
Everyone's eager to hear it.
Yeah, they are. They're all waiting on this one. So my Jersey Ed's podcast pick of the week, drum roll please, sweets, American Hero Radio. Interviews with American heroes, firefighter, law enforcement, EMS, military, police. Doug B is the host. It's just interviews with just American heroes. It's really cool, really down to earth. Some good stories, some sad stories, but I really enjoy that one. That one I'll flip on every once in a while, just to listen to something different, and it really highlights our first responders out there that serve us, and we don't understand what you guys do out there, and it's a great podcast. So look for it. It's American Hero Radio. So
well, we here at Sweet Studios appreciate you taking the time to research, find, and watch these podcasts that you put out here, Ed. Seriously.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Because I know you're a busy man.
I know. But you know what? Let's get it out there. Let's get the word out there for these first responders. So,
sounds good.
Chris, before the break, we were talking about, you mentioned something real quick about this fascinates me because I'm a runner, okay? And my goal in life is to run 100 miles. And I text you the other day that I want to do some ultras and you need to help me. And you text me something obscure back that meant nothing about the fucking
never happened.
The 100 miles. So I'm thinking to myself, maybe I can't, but I know I could. So I just need somebody like you. But talk about the I know it's not first responders, but it's more the wellness. Maybe there's some ultra marathon runners out there, first responders that can get enlightened by this. Is the 7 ultra marathons in 7 days on 7 continents? It's in the Guinness World Records, right?
No, they wouldn't put us in because they said that the actual record for 7 marathons on 7 continents was 28 days because they won't allow you to create your own marathons.
Okay.
Now, we created them, but they were also adjudicated. They were measured distances. LA, for instance, was adjudicated by the LA AIDS Marathon people.
Okay.
The one in Antarctica was adjudicated by a member of the team that runs King George Island.
Okay.
They were measured distances, very, very carefully done. Each one has been stamped and verified.
Yeah.
But Guinness, it's about money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what was the inspiration? I mean, you're a runner and all that, and what fueled that? Like, I know you said an orphanage, you built the orphanage and all that, but there has to be a little bit deeper. You have to be mentally and not just physically ready for that. You have to be mentally ready for that too.
Well, I wasn't either of those, by the way. So nobody was. I ran it with three other guys: Jack Jones from England, Stuart Kershaw, a very famous filmmaker, and Oliver Dudley. So when we put it all together, what happened was that we rowed across the Atlantic. I'd met with Stuart Kershaw. He was making a documentary about the boat we were racing against. And he got in touch with me and he said, hey, look, would you like to do something else that's really stupid? And I was like, well, why not? So he said, I've got this friend of mine who is building an orphanage in Africa for rescued child soldiers. And it was called Isaac's House. And I was intrigued by the request. So I said, yeah, why not? We can raise, $250,000 and do it. And that unfortunately doesn't happen. We had the market collapse and a bunch of other stuff, so I put my own money into it. But I did train. It's the first thing I've ever trained for in my entire life.
Wow.
In terms of, running, putting in the effort. I didn't start running until I was 55.
That's amazing.
50.
Amazing.
So, 15 years ago was when 16 years ago, I started running. And I did it because I was in such terrible shape, So the thought process behind it when we got together was I would not finish the 7 because everybody else was considerably younger, at least 25 years younger than I was. 2 of us actually finished the event, the youngest and the eldest.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Well, Stuart got violently ill and nearly died in Hong Kong, and Ollie went down in South Africa.
Oh, my God.
But, you talk about the training effort and everything else. I mean, really, most of these things are just like recovery is 90% mental and 10% physical. That everybody assumes that running an ultra is running the whole time. You're not running the whole time.
Okay.
There's a lot of walking involved in ultra running. But you set, your mind gets locked in where you say, well, I have to keep moving. I have to keep running. I'm doing this, and then suddenly you realize, no, wait a minute, I can walk for a minute. The guys that do Western States, the 100 miles, incredible runs, the run across Death Valley, that's a whole different deal. That's a different breed of person.
Yeah. Well, there's never an I can't. I don't think there's an I can't in your life. I think if you look at things and just knowing you for these last few months or whatever, that there is a no, I can't, and you'll figure it out how to do it. And it seems like in that ultra marathon, we're not going to run the whole way. It's still going to be an ultra marathon. We're not here for time. We're here to do the journey and get through the journey and get to the other side to raise the money for that. So people think that, okay, an ultra marathon, 50 miles?
50 miles, yeah. 50K, sorry, 32.
50K,
yeah,
32
anything
miles,
over, yeah.
So, it's not just about running the fastest you can in all those 7 ultra marathons. It's about finishing and doing it how you can do it. Some of us kind of look at things, okay, well, there's an obstacle in front of me. The only way is over. No, there's a round over, and that's what we have to look at in life. And anybody out there listening can probably do this. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely. And, it's funny that you say that because a few years ago we did an event to raise awareness for veterans, but also we've got to realize that there is not a veterans bill of rights. There's a GI bill, but veterans don't have a bill of rights.
That's interesting.
So there is a bill of rights that we can change, we can adapt to, but GI bills change from state to state. It's not a federal mandate. So my discussion was in trying to actually pass a bill in Congress to form a veterans bill of rights that would be fixed through time, that this is what you would get. So we did a thing called the NYC to DC run. I made it to Philly and fell apart. And I called a Marine friend of mine. I called Mike and I said, what do I do? And he said, well, you can either run in, my son was with me and another young man, Aaron Williamson. And he said, or get a bike. You just got to finish. So my son went down and bought a $100 bicycle from Walmart, took the seat off it,
no.
leaving just the pole up and said, there you go, Dad, there's your bike. Whereupon I think I cried at that point because it was bad, but because we'd covered the first 250 miles in just over 2 days. But we finished.
Right.
And we got to D.C. It was on Veterans Day. We got to be there. There was an event. Unfortunately, the bill didn't, just never transpired, but the fact is that we did it.
You did it, yeah.
And I think that that's it.
Personal accomplishment. Back in '84, a bunch of us got together and we rode bikes from Lowell, Massachusetts to York Beach, Maine. It's a 77-mile trek, and I got a moped. Because I know my capabilities, and I pulled people up hills, and we had fun. We had a great time. We didn't do it for any specific charity, but I just know that at the end of that day, what an accomplishment! Just feeling what an accomplishment. And I agree. I think if you put your mind to something, the mind is an incredible, the brain is definitely an incredible organ. It's something that can, you can be the most out of shape. I have a friend who actually runs marathons. He's run 8 of them. He's short and fat. He's never dieted. He's never exercised. All he does is he's going to run the Boston Marathon. He gets a number, and he somehow gets a number, and he runs it. And he doesn't practice for it. He completes it. He has not completed one marathon that he's entered in. It's just
that's crazy.
Yeah,
see,
it's mental.
My thinking is that I have to run it. My best marathon was when I was 32 years old. I did it in 3 hours, 41 minutes and 38 seconds.
Nice. That's a good time, man.
But I'm thinking I have to do that all the time. I'm getting older. My body's changing, and I don't have to do that. So I have to start thinking differently. I have to start thinking, okay, if I want to do this, I have to think of different ways of doing it, of injuries. If I run that marathon now, I would probably hurt myself and I wouldn't be able to finish it. So, and you and I were talking last week or 2 weeks ago. I was at a Tony Robbins convention or a conference or whatever, a seminar, and it changed my life. And there's no more I can't. And I seen that in you, okay? But the seminar was unbelievable. And it really taught us that we can do anything we put our minds to. The guy was fascinating. The guy was very motivational. There's a specific way that he does his workshops, and it's to put you in the right mindset. We ended up putting a group of 8 of us ended up putting a company together. It's a legit company. It's a 401(c). We did it in 3 days while we were listening to this guy. We got donations. We have a wounded warrior. We have all kinds of stuff in this. And I'm like, it was amazing that we did this. I'm sitting there the first day. I'm like, there's no way I can do this. There's just no way we're going to put a company together. And we raised $500 some odd. We thought we were hot shit. Another group ended up raising $40,000. Why were they were sitting there listening to him talking to us? It was just amazing. So after that, I said, you know what? I know I can run an ultra. And everybody out there listening, whatever it is, even if you're sitting on the couch, run a 5K. Do whatever you can. Get around that obstacle. Don't look at it and say you can't do it. And that's what I see in you, Chris. Right. That's what really attracts me to you. That's what I kind of like take that from you and kind of run with it. And it's just amazing.
I think, though, that the big motivation for me, especially working with vets, was working with every veteran that has their own personal issue. Mm-hmm. And that their tenacity, they're never giving up, raising their families, going to work, people that are physically impaired, people that are suffering from chronic PTSD. Mm-hmm. All of these things that we come across all the time, every day in our lives, we tend to push that to the side and look away. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. These are people that just never give up. Yeah.
Well, you look at Tunnels to Towers, and if you're listening out there, you might want to jump on that website and take a look at what Tunnels to Towers is about. And basically, it's an organization that raises money to buy homes for just veterans that need like handicap accessible homes. They don't have limbs, they don't have arms, they have prosthetics. Or it might be for a police officer who was killed in the line of duty for his family. They pay off mortgages. This is an incredible organization. And what it is, Tunnels to Towers, how it started was there was a firefighter. I wish I could think of his name right now. Maybe it'll come to me. And he was off duty, and he saw the second plane hit the tower, and he was at his fire station, and he ran through the Holland Tunnel with all his gear on to go to this fire, to go to this horrific scene. And he was off duty, and he went into the building, second tower, and he ended up dying. And his brother, who was a New York cop, started this Tunnels to Tower organization. It's amazing, the money they've raised and all the people they've helped. It's not just about firefighters, it's about cops, it's about veterans. It's the same thing we talk about here on Answering the Call. And there are organizations like this. we don't get paid to do this. We do this because we want to give back. Being a policeman for 35 years, starting at age 24 and coming out at age 61, I'm glad I made it. And I'd do anything to help a cop. I counsel them. I do whatever I can. I've raised money for veterans. If you put your mind to it and you really have a desire to help people, there's nothing better than giving.
No, absolutely.
And as we all know in recovery, Sweets is in recovery, Ed's in recovery, I'm in recovery. You
Chris
are too, Chris. I didn't know. Well, congratulations.
That's another show. Look for Chris on another show.
I really believe that, once you come out the other side and you're living a life second to none, and you don't have that demon addiction where you have to feed it every day. Now you're just getting away from it.
Yep.
We want to give back. We want to help. And that's what we do here on Answering the Call.
Well,
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say quickly is that, what struck me was when we did our completed Round Island Row, we went down to Suffolk County Veterans Place, the Vets Place in Yaphank, and we took them all onto our float. Mm-hmm. They're on the boat. People are throwing candy at them and cheering them. And I had about 8 vets on that boat. Every single one of them was crying.
Absolutely.
I said, "What's wrong?" They went, "We have never in our lives been celebrated."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it's
what
a shame.
way! What a yeah!
And
that's it. That's all it took.
Those are the people that don't need to be celebrated. They don't want a pat on the back. It embarrasses them. They don't need a thank you. People have said to me, I'm 65 years old, and on Veterans Day now, my kids will send me a text, "Thanks for your service." Well, they grew up hearing that over the last 10, 15 years. No one ever said thanks for your service to me for being a cop or a veteran. Nor did I look for it, nor want it. I got paid to do it, and I liked it. Being in the U.S. Army from age 18 to 21 was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I would have gone the other way,
Absolutely.
So,
Sweets, what's your take on all this? I know you're very active at the gym and all that. Do you have that attitude where you probably can do something like that or something in your wheelhouse? I mean, is that something that you kind of take that kind of attitude towards?
Well, as the Podfather pointed out, I'm in recovery, so you can do anything if you need to. And I look at what I think about myself is my biggest challenge. If I think I can't do it, like I think you said earlier, it's that I can't attitude. If I think I can't do something, or if I see something as too big, then I've already set my mindset.
There you go.
Yeah. And I like there's a quote out there. I like set goals so big they scare you.
I like that. I'm gonna write that down.
I always look at I like to set goals that make me uncomfortable. They challenge me, and I'd rather start something and not be able to do it and realize what it takes for me to do it afterward than to sit around and regret not trying. And the same could be said in the gym, in life, whatever it might be. So hearing you listen, listening to you, hearing you listen, nice. Listening to you guys, listening to you guys talk about these 100-mile runs or these ultra marathons makes me sick to my stomach, and I have absolutely no interest in attempting it. But I like where your head's at. I like that those are things that I imagine they challenge you, they scare you. They're things that when you get into it, I like the idea of, well, I didn't finish. Well, finish it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. Crawl across that finish line. And, I love the motivation of a bike with no seat. I love that your son put you in that position. But, I think that's what we need. That's what we need in life. That's what we need when we go to the gym. That's what we need when we pursue these things. And, Chris, I really liked hearing your comment about the vets being appreciated. They don't come back and get any acknowledgement, in all honesty, from the folks that they're protecting, and that not from anyone, but just not to that extent. And I that was really refreshing to hear. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, it's always good to hear good stories and positive stories about the first responders. That's why we're here, the health and wellness of first responders, and it's just it's just heartwarming to hear that, because you guys as first responders might hear the other side of the bullshit, and you guys do need to be patted on the back, and everybody thanking you for a good job. And we know it's your job, but you guys protect us, and it's very important, definitely important to me, and I'm sure everybody feels the same in this room. So,
well, listen, this was a great show, Chris. Can't thank you enough for coming on, and here we are at Sweet's studio. This is what scares me. Sweets has all this technology here. I wouldn't know where to begin.
I know. Hey,
Answering the Call, the First Responders Podcast, sponsored by Genesis House, and we can't forget them.
That's right. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.
That concludes this episode of Answering the Call, the First Responder Podcast. Thanks to Genesis House for sponsoring the show and supporting first responders who are struggling with addiction and mental health. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com.